Have you ever built or had a role in building a complete district budget?
No, I've had a role. I am actually a part, but being the complete district budget, we just had to create a deficit elimination plan. And again, I do all of the state and federal grants, all the Title I, Title IIA, all the 31A funding for the district, calculating to be about $4 million. And that is within the general budget. So I'm someone who's consulted with many times, and when we're trying to find ways to ease our deficit, those are definitely ways that my CFO and I work very closely together. We go to lunch about once a week. We work very tightly. Now, I don't want to pass over this point. Now, I do try to build relationships with those around me. I build genuine relationships. I genuinely like the CFO of Garden City Schools. He's a great guy, but we work effectively together and we stay focused on what we need to. You got to have the connections around you, the relationships to have these conversations to make them effective. I wish, and that's my answer. I do the state and federal grants. They are riddled with all kinds of rules and stipulations. I know way more about Title I, Title IIA, and 31A than I ever care to admit. They're the most regulated funding that we have.
All right, number 11. Are there ways the school district can increase state funding for, there's 4 here, special ed, vocational ed, and general programs, and other things that may be needed?
Schools of choice can increase all of these on the list. Special education, we have a center program, our autistic center program, Convergence Center in Garden City Schools. So we have, and that is, it's a very large center program. And I do know that ways to increase money coming from RESA is not, every budget meeting you have with them, they're not increasing your funding, they're usually cutting funding, because that's the nature of what's going on everywhere. Schools of choice essentially becomes ways to increase this, the amount of students in these programs. How you do that, again, like I mentioned, we're losing a lot of students to schools of choice, so keeping those resident students here by, again, rebranding and celebrating what we do well, all the great achievements of the school, should become a major priority in the 15-16 school year to make sure we minimize those losses in the 16-17 school year.
How can this community and this board know they have an effective school program?
I touched on this before. The outcomes. The outcomes are the results are the most important thing to look at with any of your programs. I don't know if any of one of these called for a 90-day plan, but I'm going to pass out the 90-day plan right now, and I want to highlight this because on the very first page, I got one for everybody this time. So in goal 1, focus the district on success for all students. And if you're going to focus on success, the third bullet point down, a focus on results will replace the current evaluation system for district initiatives and programs. So if you want to find out if you have an effective program, we have to see the results. Now, how do we do that? We present that at board meetings, we present that at cabinet meetings, and we question the programs that we're using now when they're not effective, or when they are perceived not to be effective. And it doesn't mean that there can't be data to show how valuable they are. Again, it comes back to the data. If you're not using data, you're just going off tradition or emotion, and that's not necessarily going to serve the students of Taylor.
So I'm going to do a follow-up just specifically on that bullet, focus on results. What if you have test scores that are good in 3 areas 1 year, and not so good in another area, and then the next year, that area is better, and another area is not good. How do you address that?
As part of my doctoral program, we go and we study many of these elements, and when you see the data go generally high like that on you, there is some other factor that's playing into the success of that program. And it becomes the researcher's job to go in and try to find the elements that correlate with those changes. So many changes like that are left unexplained, but an astute group of a task force of teachers is very capable, or task force of district individuals are capable of analyzing the data and looking at all of the other elements involved and finding out what the actual problem is, and then coming up with a solution to solve it. You know, the state came out with this new assignment for all central offices this year. It's called the program evaluation. It's something that your central office administrators and all of your buildings have to complete. And part of that report that we do online is them looking at one of their programs and going through this analysis and asking the questions through a protocol, trying to find out what worked, what didn't work, and why it didn't work, and then making plans, because we don't want to leave it there, making plans to change so that initiative will work. Many times, and I've seen through my consulting, and I've consulted in many places, I've seen amazing success using the same math program in one area and then amazing failure in another. So it's funny how you ask how can the scores go like this, and I can go to different districts and see the same everyday math program and see 2 different outcomes, one extremely high and extremely low. Well, when you go across the country and you see the Jekyll Hyde data like that, you have to understand there's something else at play here. What is that? How do we solve it? Let's make a plan, let's implement it, and we'll go back and look at that data when we're all set.
So are you saying the state mandated program evaluation, was that implemented this year?
This year.
A report went in?
Yes, mine had to be in at a district level on June 30th, and I can't remember if the buildings, all my buildings are done with theirs because they had to finish before they left. Pretty sure theirs were also due June 30th, but it also might be due September 1st with their school improvement plan. It's in conjunction with the school improvement plan because you're supposed to do an evaluation on one of your elements within your plan to find out if it worked or what we need to do differently. It's another support that the state's given us. Sometimes these supports aren't very good. This is one that I like and something we have to question with all that we do.
So it's based on the district school improvement plan or the individual building school improvement plan?
I actually had to do mine from a district level, and each building has to do their own school version of it, where they look at an element from their plan.
How would you initiate curriculum change?
Kind of on the same topic. So curriculum change in my district, and I peeked through your contract, but I didn't finish it. You also have a curriculum council. Also, you have a group of teachers that gets together with the superintendent or a designee that functions as the chair of that committee. And this is not the board curriculum committee. This is actually within the district that looks at curriculum recommendations from the teachers and from the buildings and does studies about what curriculum and what the implementation would entail. Garden City, this is how we do it, that exact process. I facilitate that with a co-teacher, with another teacher leader. We look at elements that we see problems data-wise in the district, do research about what elements work for that, do basically a report on what is the value of these things, how much they cost the district. Once Curriculum Council, which again has members from every school, has the union president there, then we agree to vote it up or down, and that then goes to Board Curriculum Committee that has then the presentation given to them, then on to Board Finance, and then on to a full board vote after 2 readings. That's the technical version of how curriculum changes. How I've seen it happen at a grassroots level with something like balanced literacy and guided reading is our teachers weren't in a bubble. They had kids in schools, in their communities. They had their own kids, and so they visited those kids. They saw this different way of how we're teaching reading now, which is not with a workbook. It's not with your basal reader. It's with these small books, and the teacher does a small group guided reading, and students spend a lot of time with independent reading. They got to see these things happening. They had this grassroots kind of transformation within a district. That sometimes is a magic way to transform an entire district. One of the things I'm most proud of at Garden City Schools is a complete transition of how we teach English language arts over the last 3 years. We've gone from a basal reader to a new balanced literacy approach. And our reading scores on the NWEA have shown the growth from that.
What is your role, or what is the role of the superintendent and the Board of Education in curriculum development and/or innovation?
I feel like I'm answering the questions one ahead of time here. So I essentially went through the technical process of how that is done. Again, we can never ignore that grassroots magic when it happens in the classroom. It catches fire, and we need to do our best to through the work of the different schools, the principals, and the board, increase that knowledge of what's happening. So we can push around the good things that are happening.